Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me at this time. My name is Shabi Zane, and I'm coming on to have a discussion with you all. Now, first of all, I know that this is my channel that I usually use for my skits, but I'm having to come on this channel to speak about more serious topics because on my other channel, Shabi Zane, the Tarot Investigator, YouTube has decided to block me from creating content for a week. Now, this was all as a result of a message that I brought forward in regards to the powers that were, what's happening over here in this region right here between this group of people and those who stay in this part of that particular landmass. Now, I did a reading and a lot of things came out. A lot of things came out. There's a lot of fake news, there's a lot of propaganda. There is a lot of things been fed to the masses ass backwards in order to win the sympathy of the world. Okay? There's a specific group of people that definitely wants to convince you that another group of people are, in fact, the villains, they're savages, they're animals. That's what they're telling people. I actually heard someone on a news broadcast who is a specific leader over there in this particular region speak of the other group of people and say specifically that they were animals. Okay, so this is not my words. This is what has been broadcasted on national television for the entire world to hear and see. But these are things they have the right, according to them, the powers that were, because they run the media, they feel that they have the right to control the narrative. They have the right to determine what the masses are supposed to believe and what we're supposed to support. And the moment that we are able to discern right from wrong, truth from fiction, illusions versus reality, you better not say anything if it's in opposition to what they want the world to believe. And so they have people, these shadow banners that are here on this particular platform, and of course, many others who monitor everything that's being said at this very hour because they want to ensure that whatever is being said, you have to be very, very, very careful about what you're saying and how you're saying it because otherwise they're going to shut you off, they're going to gag you, and they're going to make sure that you do not have a voice if it's in opposition to their agenda. So it's very important right now, those of you who are out there who are awakened, and if your eyes are open, you see very clearly what's going on. You see very clearly that anytime, let's just speak on a scenario here. When there is someone that's being tried in court, you have two sides, right? There's always two sides. And on each side, both parties gets the opportunity to openly communicate their truth about what happened, why it happened, and whatever events unfolded at that particular time. But there is a very one-sided agenda that is being pushed by the powers that were, where the other side, they have a truth, they have a voice, but they have cut them off completely by removing every resource that they could possibly utilize in order to get their truth out to the world. Why? Because the agenda of the powers that were is to ensure that everyone believes that they are the innocent ones. But those of you who are awakened, I don't care how long you've been awakened, you're awakened enough to be able to discern truth versus fiction, illusion versus reality. And the fact of the matter is, it becomes so much more apparent and so much more clear anytime you shut off someone from being able to openly communicate their truth or to stand behind what they truly believe in and to openly communicate that is only because of one reason and one reason only. You don't want the truth to get out because it does not support your agenda to maintain power over the masses. And so they're doing this from a higher scale, from a broader scale. Those people who are over there that's fighting up against the powers that were right now, they're shutting them down. But they're also doing this on a smaller scale for those of us who are out here who see the truth, especially those of you who are empaths or you have spiritual gifts and you're able to tap into the energy. Even if you don't have necessarily what you might consider to be spiritual gifts, you're still able to discern. You can look at a situation and tell when somebody is really trying to cover something up, especially when they are trying to shut down the other side of the story. And so many of us are out here openly communicating our opinions of what's going on, and maybe even openly communicating that we do not stand behind the powers that were. Because, of course, if you are a chosen seed and you awaken, you are not backing the powers that were. And you know who the powers that were are. The powers that were, for those of you who might not be familiar, because this channel is a fairly new channel, the powers that were are those people who also are known as the powers that be, but they're losing their power. And that's why I call them the powers that were. These are the people that own the banking systems, the media, the press, Silicon Valley. They own Hollywood. They own, the music industry, the sports industry. They own the hospitals, the nursing homes, the medical industry, everything. They own it. Social media platforms. They own it all. That's the powers that were. And they're being exposed. Their hand is being exposed because they've been throwing rocks and hiding their hand for a very, very long time under the skies of being holier than thou. Oh, we are the people of the land. We are the chosen of the Most High God. We are, in fact, Benjamin, right? Right? This is what they wanted the world to believe. And many of our ancestors got tricked, fooled, bamboozled into believing it. But there was also many of our ancestors that knew the truth, but they was beaten into submission so that they would never openly communicate that truth. And so there was fear that was placed in our ancestors. And so they ended up submitting, suppressing that truth, and going with the agenda of the powers that were to continue to teach and feed their offspring, which will be us, that their way is right and anything that veers outside of that is wrong, all for the sake of protecting their offspring. Okay. But now we're in the age of Aquarius. And in the age of Aquarius, we do not sit back and and remain in a passive, docile state. We do not allow someone to create what we know to be true for us. They don't create our vision for us. They have spent a long time working feverishly, day and night, using the sleight of hand and perfecting their Houdini tactics, trying to make the world believe that they was in fact supernatural, super powerful, and that they possessed the authority, and that the Most High had granted them this because of their lineage, because of their bloodline, because of who they are, or because they had been able to obtain a certain amount of power. But when you really go back, and you don't have to go back far to track back the track record of these people, when you look back, you realize that the way that they came up and received that power and that wealth and that authority was through bloodshed, murder, colonization, lies, theft, sacrifice, rituals. Okay, you name it, they did it. And so we are now at a place where the demonic structure is now coming to a head, and that thing is getting ready to bust. It's already bursting right in front of our faces. And so their objective now is to hide and to cover up as much as possible, because there's a whole lot of people over there that know the truth. They've seen it with their very own eyes. They've seen, it came out in my reading that YouTube took down because there was too many truths that came through there. Because as I tell you all, people lie, energy does not. There was many things that came out about laboratories, bioweapons, all types of things that's being brewed up and cooked up, stirred up behind the scenes. Oh, I'm telling you, a whole lot came out in that reading. They took that thing down quick, fast, and in a hurry because it was growing rapidly. There were a lot of people that were seeing it in a short period of time. The objective of these people is to make sure that they want to turn us into robots. They want to turn us into yes men, yes women, yes sir, yes ma'am, right? They want you to be in a passive state and allow them to control every facet of your being, including how you think, how you pray, who you pray to, when you pray. Okay? They want to control it all. How you teach your children, how you rear up your children, what you're guiding them to believe. Okay? They want to control it all because the whole objective is to make you believe that they are God. They have tried their hardest to lift themselves up as being God, but they can never reach that of the Most High, Mother and Father. They can never come close because they don't possess a soul. These are soulless beings that are roaming this earth, that were highly jealous, and that they still are highly jealous of the true chosen. Okay, those of us who are divinely assigned to bring humanity back into balance, those of us who have been given the assignment to be judge and jury. And so even though they took the video down, I had at least about 1,600 people who was able to be witnesses to what was coming out through the energy. And they say two or more is enough. And yes, two or more is enough. Anytime you have a trial, you go and you gather witnesses so that they are there to observe and to interpret the situation. And there was enough chosen seed who gathered to watch that message, who gained the understanding of what's really going on over there, even though the other people, the opposition, or what they like to call the opposition, does not have a voice because they stripped their voice from them by cutting their supply, their power supply, their internet, and everything else. The truth still came through, and at least 1,600 people was able to eyewitness that truth that came through the energy of that reading. And so those same people, when I send those prayers up, because the Most High has given me the authority to be judge and jury, and when I send those prayers up, that the highest form of righteous judgment is casted upon the heads of the wicked ones who are harming innocent people, innocent women, innocent children, all because they have a sick desire to maintain their position of power and authority over the entire globe. And anyone that bucks up against it and says what you're doing to us is wrong, what you are doing to our children and to our women and to our families is wrong, that's when they say, oh, we must put a stop to this. We must make them an example. They must be the example to the world, not to mess with us, because these are outright thugs here. These are the real thugs. Okay. But see, they think they big and bad, but they're not bigger than the Most High Mother and Father. They're not bigger than the holy angels and our ancestors of love and war. They're not bigger than the universal cosmic and elemental spirits. They don't stand taller. But see, they think they do until they get that rude awakening that's about to hit their ass real fast. Because we, as the chosen, we see the truth of what's happening, and we take our prayers through righteous indignation to the Most High Mother and Father, and we establish and we declare and we decree that judgment is now going to be served. We will not sit on our hands, and we will not wait. This is why we're out here doing the declarations, saying our prayers, doing the rituals to ensure that judgment comes swiftly. We are not waiting for judgment to come another generation from now. No, we can't afford to keep these people in power that much longer. And so now we've been called to do the rituals to establish that the energy is shifted, and that these people and that the beast that they operate from, the beast that they have created in the spiritual realm, is now put to rest. We will not sit on our hands anymore. We did that long enough in our sleep state, but now that we are awakened, it will be impossible for us to eyewitness the blatant, outright genocide happening right in front of our eyes and not do rituals and to declare and decree that justice and judgment comes down upon the heads of the wicked ones. We don't sit on our hands. And so at this time, with everything that's going on, especially if you're an empath and you're very sensitive to energy, you might feel that heightened energy of emotion, especially when you can see clearly, you can see right through the illusion that's being projected to the world. You can see right through it. It can be painful to know that things are unfolding the way that they are when you know for a fact that those who are pulling and trying to gain the sympathy of the world are, in fact, the ones who are the murderers. They are the thieves. They are the criminals. You know, There's a lot going on right now, y'all. And if you are, in fact, a spiritual warrior out there, I strongly suggest that you start doing the rituals with us. The declarations I declare and decree, you put it on paper and you burn it. Destruction over the enemy, destruction over those who are in a position of authority that have misused and abused their authority, destruction of their agenda, their empire, their power, their wealth, okay? Destruction of their illusions, and that it's brought down swiftly. Judgment is brought down swiftly upon their heads in spirit and in flesh. Burn that. Light you a candle. I declare and decree that the highest form of righteous judgment is swiftly casted upon the heads of the enemy, the powers that were, and those who have worked up against the chosen and who continue to work against the chosen. Let swift judgment come upon their heads in spirit and in flesh. Y'all know what to do out there. We got to take this before the Most High Mother and Father and establish it, because we now see the truth. A lot of times, even in the 3D, when you think about crimes that happen, a lot of times things don't get handled. And we got to consider, of course, the judicial system that is in place right now has been built by a very corrupt people. And so a lot of things get swept up underneath the rug unless it's one of theirs that's actually affected by it or impacted by it. But consider a righteous judge in the 3D. They cannot establish judgment over someone unless sufficient evidence is brought forward, unless someone speaks out and says that there's a crime that has been committed. It has to first be reported. And so in the spiritual realm, it's the same thing. We had to first see the truth, see past the matrix, see past the illusions before we could actually send prayers up that would be heard. And we had to also understand that the prayers was being cut off by a false God that was created by the powers that were. When you was praying to a European Jesus, your prayers was being cut off because you should have been going directly to the source from the very beginning. And so now that we see past the illusion, we are able to get direct access to the true judge who will bring the gavel down. This is the judge that can never be bribed. This is the judge that will always operate from integrity, because the Most High Mother and Father believes in balance of all things. They believe in the yin and the yang, the masculine and feminine energy, the balance of the universe. And you know this based on the creation. Mother and Father has always made sure that we understood that the masculine and feminine energy must always be present in order for balance to take place. That's the yin and the yang, the balance scales. That's what that represents. And so when we take these things before the Most High Mother and Father, because we now have a balanced understanding of what's really happening here, both spiritually and physically, then our prayers get heard that much sooner. And judgment is established that much faster. So I just wanted to come on to remind you all, we are standing in our authority and we are receiving our thrones. We are receiving our positions back here on this earth. But first, destruction has to come. And those who sat in that position of so-called royalty and power now have to be brought down to their knees, down on their faces. They have to be destroyed, and so does their empire. And every part from the root has to be plucked up and thrown and cast out, never to return again. And we have to establish that. The only way that things was going to return back to its rightful position was for us to first return back to our rightful royalty, that royalty that always existed within us. But see, our ancestors and our lineage was beaten into submission and fear. So they couldn't pass that royalty down to us, but it never left you. That spark never left you, because your first mother and father has always existed. And it was always just a matter of you coming into remembrance of connecting to that divine source and also stepping into your own divine energy. And that will first come after the awakening. And that's why here in the age of Aquarius, we have enough chosen seed who have awakened. And so the energy is shifting. We have shifted. We have healed. We have transformed. So now we're ready to take back our thrones And so that means that those who were sitting on those thrones are now being dethroned because we are now ready to stand up and to bring balance back to humanity because we brought balance within ourselves. Christ consciousness has now awakened, okay? And the true judge and jury has now returned to planet Earth. So, for those people, those little shadow banners, those little puppets that's here on YouTube that sit behind the screen, just waiting to shut us down because they're little puppets, okay? They work for the powers that were and they think that they are exempt to judgment. Oh, they are far from exempt from judgment. They are some of the first that will be judged, and rightfully so. So that's my message for you all. Please be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment so that this message can circulate. We need this to get out. More people need to understand the illusion that's being fed to them every single day that they turn on the news, especially now in terms of what's happening today. They need to be able to see it and to understand it. And it takes for us to be able to openly communicate the truth. There's a lot of restrictions that they have on these platforms, but we know how to create our own language and trust and believe those who are supposed to understand will understand. He who have ears, let him hear. I love you all, and I'll talk to you all next time.